Hi, I'm Letty McHugh. I'm here to show you how to make an origami boat. This is for anyone who's interested in taking part in my project, Seaworthy Vessel, or for anyone who just fancies making an origami boat, I guess. I'll talk you through the folding twice, then I'm going to keep folding while I tell you a bit more about the project. So to make an origami boat, you're going to need a square of paper, any size. You can use just a plain sheet of printer paper, and if that's what you've got, it's really easy to make it a square. I thought I'd just show you how to do that. So what you need to do is just take the corner and fold it up until it meets the flat side, and then just press the fold in, and then fold the flappy bit, this bit here, down in a straight line. And then if you trim this bit off where the fold is, you'll have a square of paper that will be fine to use for this project. If you are interested in taking part in Seaworthy Vessel, it would be great if you would fill your paper with some written text in your own handwriting. You can really write about anything, but the idea is to write about something really that you're proud of, something you've overcome, something that makes you feel buoyant to think about. And we're going to make boats that look like these. So, to start with, you're going to need to put your paper with whatever you want to be on the outside, ideally text, face down. And then the first thing you're going to do is fold the corner, the bottom corner, up to meet the top corner, and just squash that fold in. And then you're going to open it back out and put the paper flat again, and then take the opposite corner to the one you just folded, so that your fold line you just did will be going like straight up the paper. Take this corner and fold it up to meet the opposite corner to that one. So really try and press your folds in as hard as you can. And then if you unfold this again, you'll see that the fold you've just made have put like a little cross point in the middle of the paper with the lines going outwards. So it'll look like that. So the next thing you're going to do is take any of the corners and just fold them up to meet that point you just made in the middle of the paper. So when you've folded it up, it's going to look like this. Do that with all four corners. So you fold the corner up to the middle to meet the point you made with your first two folds. Keep doing that all the way around. It doesn't really matter about how neat it is. Like this one I'm doing is not that neat on the corners. That's not going to matter for our purposes today. When you've folded all four corners in, it's going to look like this, like an envelope. This is called an envelope fold, incidentally. So once you've got it looking like an envelope, if you put it back flat down, and you're going to fold either just one edge up to meet the opposite edge, so that you should then have something that looks basically like a book. So when you open it out, you'll see the envelope points of the fold on the inside, and on the outside it's going to look like this. So it's in half, like a book. Then you're going to put it flat again and take the edge that opens and just fold this edge down to meet the bottom edge here, and squash it in so that it looks like this. You'll see you've got sort of the corners of the envelope fold here, and a flat edge, and then an opening here. And then flip it over and do the same thing on the back side. Fold this edge down to meet the bottom, So then you should have something that looks like this. If you look at it all the way around, you've got the corners with the line. If I bring that up close, you'll just kind of see the line of the folds you originally made in your envelope fold, or along the corners. And then if you open it up this way, you'll see the points of those folds. If you open it up this way, it's like a concertina. So the next thing you're going to do is, again, on every corner, but just start with one. These corners where you can see these lines that are from the envelope fold, you're going to fold that corner down to the flat. So it looks like that. So I'll show you again. This corner, you can see here where the line from the previous fold is. This corner folds down to the edge. So you've folded both corners down on one side like that. Flip it over. Same thing on the other side. These lines here from your envelope fold, they're going to be the point of the fold. So you fold this point down to the flat side. And the same on the last, this point with that line there, down to the flat. So then you'll have a shape like this. It's like a roof of a house or something. What you're going to do is, again, take the corners and fold them down to the middle. That's basically what you do for the entire of this boat. So once you've folded the corner down to the middle, it's going to look like that. It's kind of counterintuitive to work this out, but it's straightforward to do. It looks more complicated than it is. So again, same, this corner is going to fold down to the middle here. So it comes down. Doesn't really matter if that bit spills out a bit. Flatten it out nice. So then you have a sort of triangle here with these two, what was the original corners, now down at the middle. Do the same on the back. Fold the corner down to the bottom edge. You probably want to do this on flat on the table. I'm just doing it held up so you can see it. Squashing those flat. And then the same on the other side, folding the corner down to the middle. So then you've got this shape. It's the same on both sides. It's like a sort of half a diamond with the points you just made here. What you're going to do, again, same on both sides, is take this point that you just made and fold it up to the middle, like that. Same on the back. This point here folds up to the middle edge. So then this is what that's going to look like. If you look all around, you've got the 2 points here. If you look inside on this side, you can still just see the very points of the envelope fold we did. If you look on this side, if you kind of open it out, there'll be like a gap where the triangles are, and then 2 folds, and then like a middle fold. So this is the bit that's almost like magic. It looks harder than it is, but you've just got to sort of trust your hands, right? So what you're going to do is turn this inside out. So you're going to get hold of these 2 folds, leaving this middle fold, and hold it on to these triangles at the back, and just sort of push and pull. Try to do it really slowly. The whole thing will just turn inside out, and then you've made a boat. Ta-da! Hopefully it's gone right. If not, you know, just have another go. It's fine. So I'm going to talk you through doing that one more time. So we're starting with a sheet of paper. Whatever decoration is on the paper is going to go down, so you've got your plain side facing you. Then you're going to take the corner and fold it across to meet its opposite corner. Just smooth the folds in. Then unfold. And then you're going to take the corner that you didn't just fold, so you can see the fold you just made isn't going up across the paper. Take the corner at the bottom of that fold it up to meet the corner at the other opposite side. Smooth your fold in, and then open it back out, and we'll see this point in the middle where all the folds we made just meet. That's the middle of your piece of paper. So what you're then going to do is on all four corners, take the corner and fold it up to the point in the middle of the paper. I'll show you that a bit more close up. So you see we're taking the corner and we're folding it up to meet the point in the middle, and then smoothing it out. And the same until all four corners are folded in. Again, I can't emphasize enough like how much it doesn't really matter if it's not the neatest thing. Like if you were an origami master, like you wouldn't want it to look like this, but many of my boats look like this. For what we're doing today, this isn't a problem. So it should look like an envelope. You've done your envelope fold, and what you're going to do is you're going to take one edge of the square and fold it up to meet the opposite edge, so that what you have looks like a little booklet. You can open it out, and on the inside you see the points of your envelope fold. On the outside it looks like this. You're now going to put that back down flat and take the opening edge, just one side, and fold that edge here. I'll do it this way this time so you can see. This edge here that folds up to the middle. So it looks like this. You've got this here, there's sort of an opening there, and you can see the sort of edges of your envelope fold. You can do the same on the other side, folding this edge here up to meet the middle. So then you'll have something that looks like this. If you open it this way, there's kind of a concertina. If you open it the other way, you can see the points of your envelope fold. So what we're going to do now is put this back down flat and take, you'll be able to see when you look at this, sort of the edges of what was your envelope fold. It's important to note those. When you fold, so what the next bit you're going to do is fold these corners up to the middle, all four corners, but it's important that you get the fold is sort of going along this line that you've made with your envelope fold. So you fold your corner up, squash it in, same on this side. You probably want to do this flat on the table, I'm just doing it in the sky so you can see it. Fold it up, all four corners, to the middle. So that's sort of that roof shape. Then what you're going to do is, again, as I said, it's all just folding the corners to the middle. These new corners that we've made from your fold, all four of them are going to fold up to the flat edge here. So same again, this corner, folding to the edge, just like this. You've got this point here now, 2 points here. Same on the other side, fold in this corner up to the middle. And again, this corner up to the middle. So then what you're going to have is something that looks like this. These points here are the next thing you're going to fold. So on both sides, fold the point of the triangle you just made. Fold that so that it comes up to the middle edge. Same on both sides. This is coming up here to the middle. So then you have this shape where you've got a triangle and then these two bits. I don't really know what the word is for those. Same on the back, you've got a triangle and these, and then if you start opening that out, on one side you can still see like the points of your original envelope fold, and then on this side you've got the points of your triangle and then 2 folds with a 3rd fold in the middle. So when you open it out, make sure this is the side you've got with the 2 folds. Get hold of those. You can't really explain this, but you just have to do it. You turn it inside out. So on the back, your thumbs are going to be like holding on there, pushing up. And on the front, it looks like this. I'm going to do it slowly so you can see. It just sort of all turns inside out. And then, ta-da, hopefully you've successfully made another boat. So, now that we've done that, you're probably asking yourself, hey, Letty McHugh, how come you're all up on the Dow Instagram feed trying to make me make an origami boat? Well, the answer is that for my ongoing project that Dow have been supporting, Seaworthy Vessel, I am working on folding an installation of 1,000 origami boats. And now I've said that, you are probably asking yourself, hey, Letty McHugh, why on earth are you folding 1,000 origami boats? And to be honest, that's a question I ask myself quite often. To answer it, I'm just going to go back in time a little bit and tell you where the project Seaworthy Vessel came from and some of the inspiration behind it. So I first had the idea for Seaworthy Vessel back in 2015 when I was on a train and I looked out of the train window and there was a scrapyard, and in that scrapyard was a line of like massive anchors that had obviously come off ships. And on that day when I saw those anchors, I sort of started to think about what had happened to the ships that the anchors came off and what had led to them being scrapped. And I just remember this sentence coming into my head of, well, they were scrapped because they weren't seaworthy. And although the project changed a lot, that day that thought came into my head. And then the next question of what would happen if that notion of seaworthiness or unseaworthiness, so you're seaworthy, you're a ship in the sea, you're unseaworthy, you're a collection of parts in a scrapyard, what would happen if that idea was applied to people? And you know, there's obviously a lot of contentious questions around the idea of worthiness with people, like who we consider worthy. And I particularly thought about my great-grandfather, or Grandad Billy, as he was known to me. I think, so my great-granddad was in the Merchant Navy. That's how I came to know the little that I do know about seafaring and about ideas of seaworthiness. I think when I tell people that my project is inspired by my great-granddad, I think they assume that it's like family research that I'm doing about somebody that's dead, but and he is dead now, but for most of my life, until I was 16, he was alive and he was a big part of my life. And the stories of his that I know, they're all first-hand stories that he told to me. And the sort of connection that came was that he was in the Merchant Navy in the Second World War, and he was in an industrial accident that really badly affected his hands. Both hands were really badly damaged. He lost fingers on one hand, and he was discharged from the Navy, the Merchant Navy, and the certificate, the discharge certificate that I actually have, the phrasing on it is reason for discharge, physically unfit for seafaring. So I sort of knew that people could be considered, unfit for sea work, or unseaworthy, I guess. And I think at the time when I was first thinking about this project, I had still quite recently been diagnosed with MS. So that relation in my mind of like questioning my own place as an artist and my artistic career and my place in the world as a sort of newly disabled person, or a newly diagnosed disabled person, was definitely in my thinking when I was first thinking of this project. And I think I was really thinking of, the thing that really struck me was boats as the metaphor for people, because I think if you think about, a small ship in the massive ocean, that really related to me as like tiny people in a large, indifferent universe where we're constantly beset with circumstances beyond our control. And then that's where I think the idea for seaworthiness in people came from, is the idea that in order to weather those circumstances beyond our control, in the way that ships weather unexpected weather at sea, the thing we need is resilience, emotional resilience, is that feeling of buoyancy. So that's what I was thinking about when I first started thinking about working on the project. And I was really, in particular, thinking about one story from my great-grandfather's life, which was that when he did have that accident and he was discharged from the Merchant Navy, and he was unable to work for 3 years due to his hand injuries, one of the things that he did to rehabilitate his hands was that he learnt to knit, and he knit slippers for all his family. And my grandma and my auntie Tina always talk about these stories of these like lumpy, uncomfortable but made with love slippers that there were just dozens of as he was learning to use his hands again. So one of the ideas that I had for the project was that I wanted to do a similarly sort of intensive, repetitive task as one of the artistic outputs. Originally, I was thinking about knitting slippers myself, like a large number of slippers, but I sort of both decided that that was a bit literal, and that I'm really rubbish at knitting, and it would have taken forever, and not been very good. But I was thinking about some really intensive repetitive physical activity that I could do as part of understanding that process that my granddad went through. So just as I was wanting to start work on the project, in sort of maybe 2016 time, as I'd kind of developed the idea, almost poetically, I had an MS relapse that really affected my hands. So then I couldn't work, and I think I didn't understand until it happened, like, what an emotional experience that would be for me as an artist, having something that affected my hands that I'd come to rely on so much, you know, for making work, and it felt like a loss of a voice in a way, because I use my hands so much in creative expression. So when I came back to work on the project again, when I was getting back to work, that was really where the idea of making a large-scale origami installation became even more important, I think, to the project, because it was both sort of repeating this repetitive action that my granddad Billy had undertaken, but also it became about you know, me sort of wanting to test my own hands and my own, you know, I'd had origami skills before I started working on this project, and my confidence in those skills had been really undermined by this relapse. So it became about me physically reinforcing those skills and exploring those skills again, but also that sort of emotional journey of learning to trust my hands again, and working with my hands again in a really sort of fiddly, intensive way became a really important part of the project. And I think the idea of making 1,000 became like, it's like such an undeniable statement of, you know, the massive achievement of being able to do that with my hands again. So that was the idea when I started making origami boats at the start of 2019. Was really exploring this thing with my hands, and that relationship with my granddad, and kind of the wider thing of worthiness. But the project really developed to be about a lot more than that, I think, especially after, so in early 2019 I was very lucky to receive an emergence bursary, in part supported by Disability Arts Online. Receiving the emergence bursary really changed the development of Seaworthy Vessel as a project, and my development as an artist, I think, and the support and input I got from the organisations that I was working with was so important to that development. I think the most important thing that it allowed me to do was that I was able to take an artistic research trip to Oslo in Norway. That was really important to the project for two reasons. One is that Oslo is where my granddad really was when World War II broke out. And there was a lot of, it's like a really important story in my family, because it was my grandma, his daughter, was born the day before war broke out, and then they couldn't get in contact with Grandad Billy because he was stuck in Oslo, and they didn't really know what was going to happen, and like whether it would be safe for them to sail home. But it was also the only place that he ever went back to, of all the places. He used to joke that he'd sailed around half the world twice. He'd done a lot of travelling in the Merchant Navy, and Norway and Oslo and Bergen were the only places that he ever wanted to return to. So it felt to me like it was really important when I was sort of trying to understand this relationship between my experiences and his experiences, it felt like a really important part. It felt like a really important place to go. And I think the experience of going there, of going to what was the docks in the 1930s and 40s when my granddad was sailing back and forth there, just that connection, that real moment of, you know, separated by time but like standing in the same place, and those like big feelings that I had in that place felt like a really important part of developing the story, and sort of, I think in part of my motivation for the project, now I look back, was because there was questions that I wanted to ask my granddad Billy that I couldn't ask because he's dead, and part of the exploration of the project was about, you know, trying to understand what was it like in Oslo, like what was that draw that he felt. And having been there, I think that I get it. There's something about Oslo that is just a really beautiful and calming place where I think you are really constantly overwhelmed by the outstanding beauty of the fjords. It's a good place to think. I have not sailed around half the world twice. I haven't been to very many places, but Oslo is definitely somewhere that I would go back to if I could. And I think the other thing that was really important for me and the development of Seaworthy Vessel in the project, about that trip to Oslo, was that I learned a lot about ships while I was there that I did not previously know. There's a lot of maritime history, and I went to see the Viking longships that are in Oslo, which are the, I believe, the most intact Viking longships that are on display anywhere. And I found the experience of seeing them like really overwhelming, but also weirdly like a hopeful experience. I think there was something about seeing them and realizing how like relatively fragile they are, but they've survived, you know, what, 1,000 years, and thinking about the weirdness of that as a human endeavor, that we would ever have looked at like something as huge as the sea, as like the, you know, the fjords going out to the sea. We looked at that and we thought, well, I reckon I could build a boat and sail across that. Like, that just seems like the most unlikely thing. And I think those Viking longships really brought home to me sort of the wonderful, ridiculous, like the ridiculous nature of the human spirit throughout, you know, the ages. The idea that we would think that we could sail a sea, or, you know, pronounce the word ridiculous. And I think just that feeling of the fact that they had still survived, you know, through all the most unlikely outcomes for that boat, to be still stood there in 2019 with me, like an artist who grew up in Keighley, looking at it, really made me think about the inherent hopefulness, and sort of hopefulness in spite of massive adversity, that is an essential part of both sailing and being a human. And then the other really important thing was that I went to the Oslo Maritime Museum and read all these remarkable stories about ships that would sink and then be refloated and go on to sail for like another 30 years. And there was all these stories about ships in the harbour, and it's when I sort of came to learn that I had fundamentally misunderstood something about this idea of seaworthiness when I started the project, which is that I think when I first thought about seaworthiness, when I was looking at those anchors in a scrapyard, I thought of seaworthy and unseaworthy as having like a really clear dividing line, and it being a permanent state once a ship became unseaworthiness. But that's not the reality. The reality is that, ships can become unseaworthy, but then they can be repaired or they can be refloated and they can be seaworthy again. And it's the same for people, and maybe more pertinently in my personal journey, it's the same for me, that we can have experiences that make us feel broken, and maybe we falter in the progress that we're trying to make, but we can overcome that and we can be whole again, or we can keep going in spite of adversity, and we can overcome things, and that the human spirit is, I think, inherently buoyant. And that was a really important lesson that I learned in part through my experiences of spending that time in Oslo. I actually wrote about this a lot in the companion book for Seaworthy Vessel, which is called Some Days I Am the Sea. And I don't say this a lot, but I'm really proud of that book. You can download it for free on my website if you feel like giving it a read. It really talks in more details about all the stories behind the project and the kind of the process that I went through. I think it's quite an important part of the project if you fancy giving it a read. I hope you do. I also really hope that you feel like getting involved and folding some origami boats of your own. I think that maybe this will help you understand the idea of the project, about how we can overcome things, and we can take pride in ourselves, and we can celebrate our achievements, and maybe think about what your own personal thing is that nobody else is going to be able to read on your piece of paper that you make a boat out of. And I hope that you'll share it with the hashtag Seaworthy Vessel. I really hope that together we can build quite a sizable online fleet. That's the final thing that I have to tell you about this project, is that the original plan for these workshops was to do it in person, but obviously, the old pandemic happened. But I think after everything that I'd learned from the project, I had to find a way to adapt it, because that's the whole point, right? Is that people are adaptable and that we find ways around things. We stay afloat. So that's what I hope this project can do. I guess I just want to finish by saying what the future of the project is. I'm still hoping to eventually show the full physical fleet in a real life gallery somewhere one day. I'm really hopeful that that's going to happen, and that maybe I'll be able to do some in real life workshops at some point. I'm also planning to do another live stream when I've got 10 or 20 boats to go. But until then, thanks for taking part in the project, and thanks for watching.